Hey everybody, I am one of the singers of the Debbies. We have been uploading some documentary stuff. More news on that later. Anyway, I'm here today to review Green Day. Father of all. We're gonna do a track by track. Let me just preface this real quick. Huge Green Day fan, have been for a very long time. Just like all of these reviews have been saying. But I'm actually going to prove to be a Green Day fan, unlike all of these reviews have been saying. Track 1. Father of All. It was definitely strange the first time I heard it, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic from the very beginning. It reminded me of a Motown kind of vintage 60s kinksy kind of surf rock. Loved the falsetto, loved the bass work. The bass work was phenomenal. Some really great walking bass lines on there and some awesome trills and some shreddy moments. Trey Cool is just beating it up as usual. He's a crazy drummer, you know, he's doing a great job. And Billy's guitar was very cool too, very punchy, kind of classic Green Day, power chordy kind of stuff, with a little bit more of like an 80s guitar solo lead, kind of like really bendy and full of like feel and kind of stuff like that. Really cool, really liked it. And I love that. No, I loved the song right off the bat. I thought it was great. I understand that people were taken aback by it, but I don't get it. You know, people love Jack White, and when he does it, for some reason Billy Joe Armstrong is stuck forever to be the punk father, when I don't think he has been punk in years and years and years and years and years. And I think it's better for him. I think he's way too good of a songwriter to just stick himself in one little genre that's all about, you know, being a snot-nosed kid. So good for them. Green Day are killing it. I think it's phenomenal. Next, Fire Ready Aim. This is a little more of a classic Green Day sound. This one has kind of a Know Your Enemy kind of vibe. Maybe not classic to everybody, but classic for like the kids who got into Green Day in like 2010. Very anthem rocky, which is appropriate because it was definitely written for that Wednesday night hockey thing. Which is pretty cool that they did that. You know, it definitely sounds like a theme song. I guess they're going to be the theme song for that particular show for a while now. I believe it's the shortest track on the album. It doesn't even make 2 minutes, which is pretty crazy. That's hard to do, to really condense your song down that much to actually fulfill an audience with only 1 minute and 50 seconds. That's quite impressive. I am very much inspired by that to try to do it myself. It's a good challenge. But I love the vocal harmonies on this, the Fire Ready Aim. I love the backups, the accompaniment with the piano, the hand claps, lots of hand claps on this album. A lot of people have been complaining about that. I don't get why. The Beatles are the most popular band in the world and they did that on every song. I don't understand why everyone's been so hard on this record. It's really just a tribute to the history of rock and roll. The original rock and rollers. It does a great job of doing that. The next song, Oh Yeah. I've got a very good friend who is a very big Joan Jett fan, and I turned this on for just a second, and he was like, oh, is this Do You Want to Touch Me? And I'm like, no, it's not. It samples the song from Joan Jett, which is Green Day's very first sample. Pretty cool because it's some old guys doing some new tricks, showing some tribute to the glam punk world that Joan Jett helped bring to the industry. It's got a very Who kind of sound in the chorus. Kind of an Arctic Monkeys guitar riff, which is kind of cool. Never really heard that from Green Day. It's all single note stuff. And then of course the sample in the chorus, Joan Jett's Do You Want to Touch Me? The oh yeah, oh yeah. First time I heard it, I was like, wow, that's a cool sound. That's the way to sample something. We hear so many samples, and that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. I think the guitar riff is awesome, the bass is awesome. Drums are mediocre, but they're pretty much just the same thing as that they were in the original song. So, you know, it's pretty simple. Next song. Alright, this is when we get really, really vintage right here. This is Meet Me on the Roof. Definitely one of my favorite tracks on the record. From the very moment he comes in with his classic Billy Joe Armstrong kind of guitar riff. He's been doing that kind of stuff for so long, but now he's really just digging into the vintage melody style and recording style and playing style overall. I love the lyrics. They're sweet, they're cute, they're to the point. I love the melody. I love the vintage flavor. The music video is awesome with the kid from Stranger Things in it. The bass is fantastic. The drums are really good on this track. There's a drum roll Trey Cool does. It might be one of the best in his career. Absolutely love it. The backups are great in this, and the guitar solo is pretty interesting in this too. It's not really a guitar solo, technically just on one note. Musical break, if you will. Figured it out. he plays it, unless he used some kind of like technology to make his guitar lower, he's playing it in drop C sharp. That's not something Billie Joe Armstrong normally does. So that's pretty cool. Let's move on. I Was a Teenager. Definitely the longest track on the album. Well, what's really cool about this track is it's about being a teenager and being confused and not knowing what to do and not knowing how to react to life and kind of just saying, you know, what the heck, I'm going to do whatever I want. That's kind of the band that they came from, so they're kind of paying homage to where they came from. They also recorded it very much so in the style of Swimmers, Billie Joe Armstrong's son's band. When they started, were just a bunch of teens, so I don't know if he did that on purpose, but it's pretty cool that he wrote a song all about teen angst. And it sounds like his son's band, which is a very angsty teen sounding pop punk group. I was like, wow, this sounds like Swimmers. But what I like about too with the lyrics, a lot of people have been complaining about the lyrics because it just repeats the same exact things. It's actually a tribute to a lot of 50s and 60s rock and roll, especially in regards to like the Kinks. So Tired of Waiting, you know, that was a song that Green Day covered years ago on Shenanigans, and that's a song that just repeats the same lyrics over and over and over again. There's a lot of examples of rock throughout history that did that. I feel like because this is supposed to be a rock and roll vintage style record, I think they were paying homage to the lyrical content of that time period where they would just repeat the same thing over and over again. They'd have a verse, a chorus, repeat the verse, repeat the chorus. The Ramones did that a lot too. Captured it very well. Guitar solo is very simple, but I think it fits. All the instrumentation is very simple on this, but I think it fits because it's kind of an I don't care attitude that you have when you're a teenager. So I Was a Teenager, which could also be a reference to I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which came out around the same time that a lot of this music was coming out of. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think it's pretty awesome. So, good track. My favorite track on the record is Stab You in the Heart. It is just a straight up Elvis Presley, John Lennon, Beatles. It's gritty, it is fast, it is in your face. The instrumentation is phenomenal. The vocal is fierce. The guitar work is phenomenal. Love, love, love the way he plays on this. Similar to like what an 80s hair metal band would play if they were trying to imitate 50s and 60s rock and roll, because it's really heavy, it's gritty, it's very riffy, very surf rock. It's got a great guitar solo. Short and to the point, but it is a great guitar solo. It takes some serious skill to move your fingers like that, especially that high up on the fret. Really, really enjoyed this track, and I love, love, love the surf rock. That's my favorite style of music, is surf rock. So there's the solo. Yeah, reminds me very much of what they were doing in the trilogy, which is interesting to me because I loved the trilogy. I thought it had a lot of great experimental stuff and a lot of great representation of what they can do as musicians. So I loved that. And I agree, there was a lot of filler, which is what's great about this album, is it's just 10 tracks. So it's like there is no filler. It's got great gems like this throughout the whole thing. I absolutely love it. All right, next track. All right, Sugar Youth. Sugar Youth is probably the only song on the entire album that sounds like American Idiot classic Green Day. Got a very reminiscent sound. It's punchy, it's riffy, it's in your face. It has a little bit of a Revolution Radio flavor too, which was kind of like a return to form for them when it comes to that kind of thing. Fast lyrics, it's a very short song as well, doesn't make 2 minutes. Very great guitar work, so that 60s kind of bluesy sound with the drums and bass are on point. And the fact that he kind of goes, and it's dangerous, it feels like it's obviously a reference to American Idiot's She's a Rebel. She's a Rebel, She's a Rebel. And it's in and out. I mean, it is in and out the door, just like this album, so it's a great representation of how the album is as a whole. Next track is Junkies on a High, which is probably one of the most experimental songs Billie Joe Armstrong has ever tackled. It's like someone said to him, hey, make a hip-hop song, but try to capture the essence of, like, the Eagles, because it has that kind of dark tone of like, once you started wearing those shoes. It's got this massive amount of layering that makes it just sound huge. It's got a hip-hop beat, which is really interesting to hear from a 90s punk band. But they do it so well. The guitar work is awesome. This is some of Mike's best bass on the record. The bass is phenomenal. Drums are pretty simple, but they're very, very reminiscent of just Anthem, big and huge, and they do just such a good job making this a cruising song. This whole album is great when you're driving. This song in particular, at dusk, You know, when the you know, so everything's going down, everything's dark. It's a great song for that. Lyrically, this is probably one of the best songs on the record. It's very clearly talking about Billy Joe Armstrong's addictions that he's faced throughout the years. You know, he was in rehab for quite some time, and he's been having, I guess, some issues with it again. I hope everything, you know, stays okay. He's definitely representing kind of that lifestyle. He's showing, you know, what it's like to be in that lifestyle. Some of the greatest lyrics I think he's ever written is on this song, so really cool. Very scary lyric, in fact, is when he says, rock and roll tragedy, I think the next one could be me. Like Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, individuals who died young, and he's talking about maybe he could be the next one. Although he is, you know, almost 50, so I guess he's not really young anymore. He's escaped the 27 curse. But anyway, very cool song. Love this song. Next song is Take the Money and Crawl. Take the Money and Crawl. Obviously a famous phrase, take the money and run, something that's been used a lot in rock and roll throughout the years, so that's pretty cool that they kind of just shifted the phrase around. It opens up with this really cool, dark sounding, like Gretsch, equestrian, like Western sound, so that's really cool how he did that. Billy Joe Armstrong's a great guitar player. Given him flack throughout the years. He just doesn't always show off, but when he does, he really does. I mean, this song has a very Kinksy sound with the cry, and what's really interesting is he even has he takes a little bit from grunge in this, with the guitar riff and the guitar leads that play over his vocal throughout the song, like Alice in Chains, something that they would have done. You know, something like Man in a Box when he sings over the guitar riff, you know. But drums, bass, guitar, everything is on point. He's got this great little wah-wah riff he does here, kind of like a guitar solo, but it's pretty simplistic. It's just really cool. Now, sounds very gritty garage rock, something that you would have heard, you know, coming like out of the depths of the armpit of the 80s, maybe early 90s, mid 90s, but awesome representation of this style of song. Next, the final track on this record is Graffitia. Graffitia has been, I think, kind of universally a lot of people's favorites. He does a great job of representing that subclass of people. He comes from a world where that's what he was all about. You know, he was a punker in Oakland, California, which is just, you know, the barrio, the ghettos. He does a good job of kind of showing, you know, how it feels to be there, minimum wage or things like that, just not being enough, and having a difficult time like feeding your family. Graffitia is a cool name. I think it's a play off of the word utopia, which of course, as you know, is like a perfect society, because people aren't necessarily bad, but sometimes when you're raised around the area, it's just your surroundings. And Graffitia, I think it's just a cool way to kind of represent that idea. There's a lot of graffiti in the ghetto, but this song, as style-wise, drums, bass, guitar, all on point, really good, really clear. This probably could have been on something like 21st Century Breakdown, Bruce Springsteen-y vibe about it. You know, I imagine if he was singing it with that raspy vocal, or, you know, like John Cafferty, if he had gotten behind it and sung it, it could have sounded very Bruce Springsteen-y, which is pretty cool. Billy Joe's never really written like that before. But yeah, no, I absolutely love this song. I think it's a great closer. It fades out. It's got a great, hooky, catchy melody. It's very, like, morbidly happy. You know, it's bright, nice, but when you listen to the vocal tone, you listen to the lyrics, you can hear how sad it really is. He's a sad individual, or at least that's the way he comes across in his writing. So, but it's kind of charming in a way. A lot of his stuff, like The Long Shot, has featured that kind of flavor, and I really like that. But yeah. Overall, I think Father of All is absolutely a 10 out of 10. I love this record. It is my personal favorite Green Day record of all time. I do not want them to go back to Dookie. I do not. Because Dookie was fun and great, and if they want to write some songs that are reminiscent of that, that's all well and good. But these guys, they've been in the industry now, you know, and just playing and writing for 30 plus years. They're almost in their 50s. They're just excellent musicians. They're so good. They need to go down in history with the Eagles, with the Beatles, with the Kinks, with the Who, with Rush. That's the category I want to put them in. Not with the Ramones, not with Blink-182. They're so much better than that. And I know a lot of people have turned their backs on them because they don't represent that class of music anymore, but you know what? Fine. Let the old-timey music fans enjoy Green Day. They're in the Hall of Fame. You know, they played on stage with Ringo Starr, deservedly so, and they are the third generation Beatles. I've always said that. It goes Beatles, Eagles, Green Day. They're all so influential. They've done such a great job at molding society when it comes to music. You know, they've sold so many records. Green Day rock band, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a Broadway musical. You know, it's got all of the hook of Warning. It's got the topical subjects of American Idiot. It's got the production of 21st Century Breakdown. This new guy, Butch Walker, did an excellent job. This is probably my favorite produced album. When it comes to headphones, I love the way it came out. It is such a great representation of the music it's trying to portray. It's so good. Rhythm section moments of Revolution Radio. It's got the guitar leads of the trilogy, you know, which is great. It represents all of that stuff well-rounded, and it's got, and I feel that 21st Century Breakdown was Billy Joe Armstrong's best lyrics. This has the lyrics, you know, the caliber of lyrics on this are as good as 21st Century Breakdown. So you get the whole package. It's so good. I wouldn't recommend this to Green Day fans. If you're fans of like Insomniac and Kerplunk and all that stuff, if that's all you want Green Day to be, you're not going to like this. Not at all. But if you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of Joan Jett, if you're a fan of The Clash, if you're a fan of the Beatles, the Eagles, if you're a fan of Rush and The Who and Bruce Springsteen, if you like these great pillars, you know, to the musical, this is the album for you. It is a 10-track tribute to rock and roll. In fact, it is what inspired my bandmate and I to record our album Jump. When that finally comes out, you'll get to hear how much we were really influenced by this record and any band that's imitating. Everything comes from those subcategories. And kind of just forget that it's Green Day. Just listen to it as really good music, because that's really all that matters. Stay tuned for our stuff. It's coming out very soon. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.